Tristan Tate, thank you very much for coming on the CEO cast.
Glad to be here.
It was a pleasure speaking to your brother, and it's a pleasure to meet you today. I'm going to start off the podcast like this. Little Bird tells me that you're not that good at Uno.
Is Andrew been talking nonsense?
He's been talking the most.
You know the worst
Saying
thing?
you're the worst at it.
I'll tell you the worst thing. I win consistently every single game.
Ooh,
in
he
the
says
house.
otherwise.
Well, there are witnesses within this very room who could back me up, and I consistently win every single game. But I don't like playing. So every time he says play Uno, I say no. He says you're scared. Then I win. But every time I don't want to play, he says it's because I'm no good. So you know when you're just so good at something, you're better than everybody else.
Yeah.
That's mine and Andrew's Uno relationship.
So would you say Andrew's been lying when he came on here saying that, you lost all the time and he's won every single bit?
And let me guess. He said he's never lost a game. When he was in jail, he fought for his freedom with Uno cards. Yeah?
Oh, it's like you were here in the podcast.
No, I just know his lies all too well. So no, I am the best at I think every single card game we play.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it is.
This is going to be very, very interesting to speak to you because I gave this analogy to the boys earlier on. You two are brothers, and the way I see you is you both stand for the same ideologies, same ethos, same business mindset. He's more the savage one, and you're the gentleman, right? Even when you're meeting you here right now, you're here in a nice 12 grand suit, as you said, pulled up with security. Obviously, he drove here in the Ferrari. Yep. So the analogy I gave was, he's like the Batman, but you're like Bruce Wayne. So it's like two same people, but we've got the daytime version, we've got the nighttime version.
Yeah, if it were up to me, we'd be less famous for sure. We probably have fewer cars and fewer items that show off and show the fact that we're extremely successful. I'm a bit more low key than Andrew, but I love showing off as much as the next man. I think Andrew's just, when you have somebody like that who's on such an extreme level, I seem more modest and more calm by comparison. But I think people who get to know me notice that there's not really too much difference.
Yeah. So what are the differences? Because in a usual podcast, I normally ask about, one childhood upbringing.
Yeah.
Obviously, whereas Andrew's mentioned a lot of it in the previous podcast I've done with him, I want to know where it differs from you because obviously you being brothers, I can imagine you having the same or similar sort of childhood as him upbringing.
Well, exactly the same. In fact, if anyone's seen your previous podcast, there's literally no point in me answering the question. Everything Andrew says about his childhood, everything Andrew says about the way he was brought up, obviously our dad's influence, our mother's influence, it's all copy and paste, exactly the same, which is why you end up with two such similar people. There was a time many years ago when I was more well-known than Andrew, because I was kind of famous in Romania, and that was it. And me and Andrew were both relatively unknown worldwide. And people would accuse Andrew of, oh, you're trying to be like your brother. Now he's the famous one. People accuse me, oh, you're trying to be like your brother. The truth is, we're just both extremely similar, and we both have the influence from my father, who we're versions of to lesser or greater extents. So it's not that one brother's trying to be like the other one. It's just if you take two men and you raise them in exactly the same environment, they live in the same house their entire lives, they hang out with the same people, they have the same hobbies, they read the same books, they do the same things, you're going to end up with two men who are very similar.
Yeah,
I think that's it,
Yeah. So where does your love for, I suppose, entrepreneurship and business stem from? Because obviously you and Andrew both run this empire together, this incredible empire.
Yes.
Andrew stated on the podcast we just done now that is pretty much over $1 billion valuation at the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
So where does it start for you?
My first ever business I started when I was 5 years old. So this is a story that I had largely forgotten until I started making some money when I was 24, 25. And my mother reminded me of this chapter in my life. I was 5 years old, obviously completely broke. I come from a low-income family. And I was gifted by my father's sister for my 5th birthday a small bubblegum machine, little plastic toy. You put bubble gums in the top, you put the American 1 penny piece in it, you turn it and the bubble gum comes
You talk about like the snowball shaped ones?
Yeah, exactly. And it was a little plastic toy, very, very cheap. Probably cost my aunt no more than $1 or $2 at the time. And I realized very quickly that because the machine was not obviously very well made or properly engineered, the American 1 cent coin and the American 10 cent coin of roughly the same size pushed the mechanism down and made the gumball machine work. So I would walk around outside. I lived in this broke neighborhood, a bunch of really tiny houses and apartments cramped together. And all the local kids would come out and play. And I used to say to them, listen, look, if you want some bubblegum like me, this is the best bubblegum ever. Just go and get your mother's 10-cent coins from their purse, and then you can have the bubblegum. That's how the machine works.
This is America at the time, right?
This was America. So even at that age, a lot of the other kids didn't understand how much money was worth. They didn't understand the difference between the coins, and they were giving me these 10-cent coins. I used to stack them up and pile them up. And it was during this time I learned my first ever lesson in sales. because a kid came to me. Justin was his name. He had a twin brother. Shout out to Justin and Jeremy from Goshen, Indiana, if you are anywhere in this world. And he came up to me with a stack of 25-cent pieces. It must have been about $4 or $5 in money. And he said, my mother doesn't have the coin you're looking for. She only has these.
Give me one of
So
that.
I kept a completely straight face. I said, listen, don't tell the other kids because you've got the wrong coin. But if you give me those, I'll open up the top and I'll give you 10 bubble gums. And he was like, oh, okay. And I got like $4 or $5 from him. And I think that's where my love of business and my love of money certainly started, because I used to stack up my little piles of coins and look at them. Every time I got bored, at least once a day, I'd stack them up, count them, and admire my little piles of coins like I was Scrooge McDuck on a brokey version. And my mother used to say to me, hey, Tristan, you've got like $25, $30 there. If you give me the coins, I'll give you the paper notes. I was like, no. Don't want the paper notes. I liked stacking up my coins. I liked looking at them.
It looks better as a kid.
It looked much, much better. And that was my first successful business I ever ran. That moved into...
Just a quick one on that. At 5 years old, did you understand that these coins that you were having, did you understand there was obviously money? Did you understand the value of it?
Yes, I understood. And I also knew that I could buy a bag this big of new bubble gums to refill the machine for just $1 at the dollar store. So that's 10 of those coins. So I had my profit and loss all worked out. I was ready. I was prepared. I knew the value of all these coins. A lot of the other kids didn't. And I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I was walking around the neighborhood with the bubblegum machine trying to hustle money out of the other kids. I do not know, because that wasn't very, let's say, ethical, I guess, because the other kids didn't know the value of money. But I was 5. What did I know? What did I care? You know, I was making a bunch of money. I think I bought myself a new bike from just that one bubblegum toy. So, you know, it was a very poor tool, so to speak, to start a business with. But at my age, it worked very well. And I guess
make do with what you got.
Yeah, and that was my first successful business. I guess I could continue until my second ever successful enterprise. I must have been 12 years old. I was living in the United Kingdom at the time, and I was in high school. And this is illegal, by the way, so I'm confessing to a crime. The only crime I've ever really committed. This is the only crime I'm guilty of. And when I was 12, 13 years old, obviously everyone was buying CDs, music CDs. So I had internet access at home. I told my mother to sign up for internet access. So me and a few other kids had internet access at our home computer. And I used to go into the town center with a pen and paper, write down all the songs on the various CDs, and I'd take orders at school. So I'd sell the CDs for £2.50 or £5. And, you know, it went from that to copying video games. I mean, Age of Empires 2 was a very popular one. I mean, I'm 35 now, so we're talking a very long time ago. Rome Total War, when I was about 15, was a popular one. I used to sell these CDs at school. Until one day, I was snitched on by a kid named Wackass, was his name, from Luton. So Wackass, if you're watching, you're a snitch. I hope you've got nowhere in life.
Had to be a Pakistani guy, didn't it?
No, it was a Pakistani guy.
No,
exactly. Well, you could tell from the name. So anyway, Wackass snitched on me, and my teachers found all these music CDs in school, and obviously you're not allowed to be selling things in school. And I was a very good student. I was the straight A student. All the teachers liked me. So they called my mother to the school. She didn't have a car, so she walked all the way to school for this meeting with my head of year. And we sat down, and she was like, Tristan's been selling these CDs. This is actually, you know, he shouldn't be doing this. It's illegal to be copying these music CDs and selling them at school. And as I was walking home, my mother looked at me and said, look, Tristan, you're going to have to stop now because your teachers have caught you. But I had no idea you were doing this. And to be honest, it's quite smart. That's where you got the money for the bike. That's where you got the money for the backpack and the clothes and the shoes. I was like, yeah, I'm just selling music CDs. So I guess that was my second ever successful enterprise, but thanks to and I learned that lesson very early on. You know, don't, I guess, let untrustworthy people into your circle. You know, Wackass saw how much money I was making, straight snitched on me.
I was going to say, why do you think he snitched on you? Because he realized how much money you're making.
I think that's why. I think it's because he realized how much money I was making.
It wasn't a case of like you had, you know, sold him a game, a copy one, and then it suddenly stopped working.
All the games worked perfectly fine. I'd even get those weird codes you had to enter to stop copywriting. Yeah, you go on the Pirate Bay and find those little codes, and you know you'd sell those with the CD. You write them on the front of the CD. Properly. Yeah, it was all good. Yeah. It was all good. But Wackass snitched on me, and that was, I confess, an illegal enterprise. Yeah. So hopefully, I don't get sued by the company in business or out of business that makes Age of Empires 2. But I probably sold maybe 10 illegal copies of it. But that was my first and only criminal enterprise, and I guess my second successful business enterprise.
You see, right now, as it stands, you have this aura about you that makes you stand out. From the way that you dress, the way you articulate yourself, the way you are. Was it like that back then as well? So when you had acquired this money at 12 years old, 5 years old, and your teenage years, was you always looking for ways where you could stand out amongst the crowd?
You know what? No. No, I didn't ever. I think it's a natural product. How old are you? You're younger than me.
27,
Yeah, you're
basically.
you're younger than me. It's quite a lot younger than me. It's a natural progression if you follow the tenets that me and Andrew live by. Now we preach them, but before we preached them, we lived by them, of constant self-improvement. It gets to the point where you have companies that, as Andrew probably said, are upwards of $1 billion in valuation. You know, you're very smart, you've learned a lot, you've read a lot, you know a lot, you could speak very well. Over the course of years, all of my kickboxing training, I became the European kickboxing champion. I'm confident in the fact that I can protect myself and take care of myself. You evolve sort of and grow into the man that I guess you see today. It would be a very different interview when I was your age. I don't think I'd even made my first $1 million at 27. It was around about that time, maybe 6 months after, when I was just turned 28. So the confidence and the aura comes with time only if, and I'll stress this again, only if you do the work. Every single day, or at least 5, 6, 7 days a week, if you're constantly grinding, constantly trying to improve yourself, one day you'll wake up and everyone's like, wow, you're smart and well-spoken and you dress well and you've got a bunch of money, and you're like, well, it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it wasn't always like this.
No. The 13-year-old kid selling CDs in school was not necessarily a standout character. I'd only just started kickboxing around that time. I was just a pretty normal-ish kid. I wasn't even that big for my size. I didn't start growing till I was like 17. So I was
massive now.
I was normal height when I was 17. Then I met all my old school friends again when I was like 19, 20, and I towered over everybody. So I don't know. I didn't really stand out in any particular way when I was at school, apart from the fact that I had a slight American accent. That was the only thing that made me stand out.
Those things you learned, what was the skill sets you learned from starting those businesses at a young age? And do you think they stuck with you even till today?
I don't think I learned anything too important, to be honest. The main question I asked myself about those days and those little, let's call them hustles that I ran when I was a little kid, is why did I do it? I don't know why I did it. And the only explanation I can give in parallel to my life today is the same answer to the question, why don't I retire? I could retire, delete my presence from the internet. I have enough money to live for the rest of my life. Why don't I retire? Probably for the same reason I was selling bubblegums. I don't know exactly what the motivation was. I just felt I was good at it and I had to do it.
Or why stop this?
Exactly, and why stop this? And now the business that I run isn't hustling people for bubblegums. It's a business that, I mean, my main business, the real world, the online school we run, helps countless people. I mean, thousands of interviews I've done and posted them online of young people making insane amounts of money from just, using the program, learning the skills and applying them in the real world, no pun intended. So now I feel like my mission is greater than the business itself. So, no, I don't know what I learned back then. I learned lots of lessons working a bunch of crappy jobs, for sure.
Did you work jobs?
Oh, did I work jobs? Yeah, I worked loads
Well,
of
like
jobs.
retail jobs and stuff, yeah?
Oh, fast food jobs.
Okay,
Yeah.
fast food jobs, yeah.
I did 6 months in the McDonald's drive-thru. I worked 3 years in a pret-a-manger store in Luton Airport making sandwiches. So if you guys
Luton
ever...
Airport as well, that's a proper shithole.
If you ever...
Sorry.
Oh, terrible. No, you're completely right. So if you ever fly from Luton Airport, just before you get to the departure gates, the ones on the left
I know exactly
anyway,
what you're talking about,
there's a big pret-a-manger store. When that first opened, I was one of their first members of staff at 15 years of age. I worked there for 3 years making sandwiches. So I've done the horrible jobs and I've done the fast food jobs. And it's those jobs, the real selling your time for money hour by hour, that teaches you the value of things. Even now, I jokingly laugh with Andrew when I buy things. I don't know what the numbers are, but I'll calculate like how many hours would I have had to work in that job to buy, say, the Bugatti. And it's something crazy like 310 years of constantly working at that sandwich shop. No hours off,
310
no
freaking
days
years.
off. So we're talking at 4 human lifetimes.
Did you have any side hustles whilst working those jobs?
You know what? No, I didn't, because my effort wasn't wasted, though. I didn't waste my time because all of my spare effort went into kickboxing and kickboxing training. There were people at that store who were breaking rules of the store, obviously, when you're allowed to take sandwiches home. They were selling them and stuff, but that could get you fired. And I was like, well, why sell sandwiches. I'll just go to the kickboxing gym. I'm making enough money. So
Yeah.
it wasn't a side hustle, but I certainly wasn't wasting my time. When I preach to young men now, if you're working a job and you go home, no TV, don't play video games, limit your access to all sort of junk media, spend your time doing something productive. At least my kickboxing was something productive, even though it did, I guess it made me some money. I got paid to fight. So I guess that was a side hustle, but I learned so much more from that than I ever made financially. It wasn't a financial venture.
This is what I'm interested to know, because at the point where you're now working for someone else in retail, fast food, whatever the case may be, and then previously also having businesses, it's like, did you ever think to yourself, why am I here? I had this business. If I continued at it or started another business, I could be elsewhere. Did you ever look at yourself in those jobs and think, like, this is not me, I don't belong here?
Yeah, I knew I was wasting my time when I saw the caliber of some of the people doing the same job as me. Some of them were very nice people, some of them were not, but I will not pull my punches when I'm saying that a lot of them were morons, like absolute morons, people in their 30s who just achieved literally nothing with their lives, zero. And I'm sitting there and I know that I've got this big brain behind my young looking face. I'm sitting there making these sandwiches along with these idiots thinking, how is my time worth the same £6.90 an hour as his time? How am I using my body and mind to make these bloody sandwiches when people like this could be doing it? I should be manager. I should be running this place. I got a few promotions over the years, but my dream was never to manage a sandwich shop. So no, I quit for a sales job when I was about 19 for my first ever sales job.
What was the sales job?
I was selling television advertising space.
Oh, okay.
So I would find companies that didn't advertise on TV typically, call them up and try to arrange meetings with, higher up people in my company who could close them for me because I looked too young. That was my problem.
So it's like cold call sales?
Yeah, cold call sales, which teaches you a lot. You get hung
definitely.
up on a lot.
Yep.
And nowadays I find with youngsters and people of the younger generation, they're too afraid to make a cold phone call. It's a daunting thing. You don't know what they're going to say, but you learn the lessons. The worst they can say to you is no. And at least with sales, you're in some way working for yourself. I learned lots of harsh lessons actually at the sandwich shop and at McDonald's. I learned lots and lots of very harsh lessons that I still, I guess, helped form my opinions that I still preach today. So I'm very glad I did it because it makes me, some people think I'm alienated from them. The man who's working in McDonald's right now, who may be listening to this podcast, may think, oh, why would I listen to him? He's worth over $1 billion.
Might not seem relatable.
Yeah, he hasn't got anything in common with me. But I was the common man. I was the normal man. Even today, I describe myself as a poor man with lots of money. I don't describe myself I don't describe myself as a rich man because I'm not from their clubs. I didn't go to their universities. I'm not from their weird groups. I'm not in the Illuminati.
The money wasn't inherited.
No, absolutely not. So I made everything myself. So I'm glad I did those jobs. If I could turn back time till I was 15 years old, knowing everything I know now, at 15, I'd still work a year or two in McDonald's just to ground myself a bit more.
It's funny because though this podcast is all about business entrepreneurship and people going out their way to make their own businesses and create money for them own selves, I always recommend to people, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, to go and get a job in a specific place, something like Carphone Warehouse, where they learn the scale skills, they learn the customer service skills, they learn all these things that will transition into their business. Because I think in them places there's so much you can learn that you can't learn from starting a business at that age.
No, you're completely correct. And you also learn how to be a boss. I remember, I'll share with you a quick story from my prep days. So every single day there was a delivery of new goods. And it was heavy, like big, stacks of canned drinks. And, the ingredients would come in massive tubs of mayonnaise and stuff. It weighed quite a lot. And a gentleman I used to work with was a big Slovak guy by the name of Blaže. And the delivery was down a few flights of steps into the security office because it was the airport. Everything had to be run through the security scanners. And you used to have to put it in a lift, bring it up, and bring it into the kitchen. And every single night, delivery would call. And every single night, if you were working the night shift, you had to go and lift all this heavy stuff into the elevator. So one day, Blaže, I wasn't working, was working with 2 female members of staff on night shift. And the elevator broke. The elevator was broken. It happened in that airport. The elevator's probably 30 years old at the service entrance. And the manager, I guess, told him, well, the goods have to come upstairs. They have to be refrigerated. And Blase, like a gentleman, I guess, and like an idiot, and I love him. He's still a friend. I still speak to him now. But back then, he certainly was an idiot. He was probably, 20 years old back then. He said, you know what, I'll carry it all up the stairs myself, because there were 2 female members of staff working. So he goes downstairs, picks up these heavy, 24 cans times 2. You're picking up 48 cans of drink at a time, running up these stairs. Took him 5 hours to complete the delivery. And he slipped a disc in his back. And when he slipped a disc in his back, he called in sick the next day. He called in sick the day after. And the manager, who I believe's name was Linda at the time, he complained to her saying, look, can I get sick pay for this? Because, I was injured at work doing this. And she was like, no, you can't. And he was like, why? Because when you are, first of all, initiated into any kind of crappy job, they train you how to do things.
Yeah.
So I remember signing a piece of paper where they train you how to lift things up.
Bend
your knees, lift with your back. And
Back
she was like, no, Blase, you signed this. So any lifting injuries you get are your own fault. He saved the day and saved the delivery and saved the entire inventory of stock. Tens of thousands of dollars, no doubt, worth of ingredients and drinks, etc., by carrying this all up 2 flights of steps by himself. Slipped a disc, and he was off work for maybe a month. They didn't pay him a single penny because he'd signed this stupid waiver saying, I know how to lift things. That's very different from what he was asked to do that night. And it just made me think, wow, big corporations don't actually care about you. They don't give a shit what happens to you. And it's what I tell people nowadays. That story resonates with me when I tell people, like, you're very dedicated to your job. Maybe you're a woman, you're very dedicated to your job. And you're thinking, I'm not going to have kids for the next 6 or 7 years because I'm going to fight for this promotion. If you die tomorrow, 99% of you listeners out there in normal jobs will be replaced in a week, and you'll be forgotten about in 2. Your presence will not be missed around the office. Your presence will not be missed in the kitchen or, on the food court or in the customer service
Furthermore,
area.
they probably won't even realize that you've disappeared.
Exactly. If you disappeared and didn't tell them, they'd be like, oh, well, he's just quit out of nowhere. So, don't give yourselves and don't give your heart and soul to these companies because they have no heart and they have no soul. The business that I run, certainly the people who work for me, I don't even say work for me. I say work with me because they have skills that I don't. And if one of them was injured in the workplace or, I don't know, broke something that he owned that was company, I'm super cool about all of it. Because I don't get how you can rely on these people to keep the wheels turning, essentially, but then at the same time just throw them to the dogs when you need to. So big corporations don't care about you. Shout out to Blase if you're watching. But,
Shout out,
I'm mentioning a bunch of people I used to know when I was a teenager.
I like it though because it kind of shows you that regardless of how wealthy you are now, where you got in your life, you haven't forgot the people who were with you from then. Whether you speak to them or not, but the fact that it amazes me that you remember their names because someone would assume that person of your wealth and your status would have flown past all these people and it's like, oh, I don't remember who you are. Sorry, what's your name? You know what I'm saying? No. But the fact that you still know it shows that quite how humble you are.
In fact, he lives back in his home country now. 2 years ago, I was in Bratislava and I had Instagram at the time before I got banned. I looked him up and went for beers with him. So,
is it?
Yeah, and I'll still talk to everyone I used to know. I don't. And that's one, I guess, misconception about my brother and I. I don't think I'm better than everyone. I try to stay away from the public because the public now become very annoying. But people who I know and people who I've known for years, no, I've always got time for everyone I used to know.
The life you're living now with the wealth, that's like the new norm to you, right?
I'm trying not to let it feel normal, and I'm trying to stay humble, but it's very difficult to keep your mind switched on like it used to be 10 years ago in regards to the price of things. I don't know how much bread and milk are and various things like this. Or, when you spend money or when you buy a new car, the feeling of excitement isn't quite there like your first ever supercar. And I try my very best to think like the old Tristan. How would I feel at 19 if I had just booked this 140 grand private jet flight to Miami? How would I feel? But you can't. You become slightly numb to it. It is normal.
See, this is what I'm thinking because when you're linking up with these people from your past days, does it make you think, yeah, man, I miss the brokey days. I miss the life where you don't have to really care so much about this or that, and you have those people around you, just hanging around them.
Well, the thing is, I still have those people around me. Most of my friends who I've known for 15, 20 years, and I still speak to the same people. I mean, Rory, a lot of you know. Marcel, a lot of you know if you watch any of my content online. I hang around with the same people I've known forever. So No, I don't ever miss the brokey days, but speaking about them with my old friends makes me appreciate what I have now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So where did you go from there, Tristan?
From working at so we go from the sandwich shop to selling television commercials on the phone. Well, that business, there was a small venture where my brother and another senior salesman at that company decided to start their own venture selling TV advertising because the boss ran it very badly, to be honest with you. And I was working for them for a while, but that business ended up falling into nothing. I mean, we have my brother, he's probably 20 years old at the time.
Yep.
First ever business he's run. The other guy, probably 25, 26 at the time, but very irresponsible. And the business ended up collapsing and falling apart because television advertising died. I think that...
What year is this?
This is... So I must have been 21, so maybe 14 years ago. So 2010.
10, yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough, yeah.
So the problem was, I think, that would be an impossible business to run nowadays. To call people and try to convince them to spend 20, 30, 40 grand to
TV.
advertise on television.
Yeah, forget
They'd
it.
be like, well, I can get my niece to make a TikTok video and try and make it go viral.
Yep.
And the internet has killed television advertising. Only the biggest of the biggest companies now do it. So there's no more medium-sized companies aspiring to do it. So if you're thinking of selling TV advertising or starting that as a business, good luck to you. But I think today it would be very difficult. And it started failing around 2010. I worked a myriad of various sales jobs, from selling windows to home improvements. I actually made a lot of money when conservatory insulation first kicked off. So conservatories are either too hot or too cold, and people were insulating the ceilings. And I worked for a company in Milton Keynes with a guy who actually my former boss used to know, the former television advertising boss used to know, named Andy. And he ran this ragtag outfit of random salespeople from all sorts of backgrounds to go around, knock on doors, cold call, anything you could do to drag clients in, any house with a conservatory. So I used to go out on rainy days or super hot sunny days or super cold days and leaflet houses in nice areas like Radlett, like Hitchin, like the areas close to Luton, where people had conservatories in their houses, and I'd follow up on the leads and stuff. And I was the top salesman at the company.
Selling white gold.
Yeah, and I was 22, 23, and I was making for myself well over £1,000 a week, which isn't bad, especially 10 years ago. Remember, £1,000 a week was
a lot of money.
It was a lot of money, and that was my first taste of ever actually having money. And when I mean having money, it means, which is crazy because my threshold on having money is very low because I've been very broke. Having money at 23 meant to me that when I went to the supermarket, I could get anything I liked. That was wild.
Yeah, you have to think twice about
exactly.
it.
It's like, oh, pot noodles, yeah, I can afford these.
Yeah.
Oh, a jar of olives that costs £5 because they've got cheese in them. Okay, I can buy those. You could just buy whatever you liked from the supermarket.
Yeah.
That was mind-blowing. And that was my conservatory insulation sales job. But I made very good money. And again, you learn a lot of very difficult lessons. You have the door slammed in your face. You have people answer the door with their dog barking at you. What do you want? And you're like, hello, sir. Well, I've noticed you have a conservatory, and you're trying to pitch them. It's very difficult. And I think the internet has killed that. I think that every single year for the last probably 100 years, up until 2010, salesmen got better and better and stronger, and the science was refined, and the science of sales was perfected. And I think now it's gotten worse. I feel like the younger generation aren't built to walk around in the rain and knock on doors and try to hustle money out of selling conservatory insulation or windows. Windows are hard to sell, bro. Everyone has windows.
Yeah.
Houses all have windows, and you have to knock on the door and convince him to get rid of his old ones
and put the new ones
and
in.
buy
It's
new
funny
windows.
because there was a Netflix series called White Gold, which is why I said it's called White Gold, right? It was all on the idea of these sales guys' comedy show selling PVC. But the fact that they're basically just trying to sell this PVC as much as possible, telling these people to get rid of their old one for no apparent reason to get the new one in.
That's exactly what I do.
Like, that's a product there where you have to just learn to sell it properly.
Yeah. And nowadays you have youngsters that are just like, oh, well, sales is hard. I sent a bunch of cold emails. I didn't get a reply. Cold email is hard? You think copying and pasting and sending is hard?
Yeah, literally just put
You
it
don't
on
know
hold
what
on the
hard
email
is.
to-
Try dialing them on the phone.
Yeah.
You probably have a lot more success.
How did you do with negotiations? So not negotiations, rejections.
Rejections, I've always dealt with rejections very, very well. I was very pragmatic. When I got a no, I obviously store the number, store the lead, call them back next week just to see if it was a final no. I had a very organized system, and I think that's a key to mine Landry's success. We're very organized people. He's probably more organized than me. He calls me disorganized, even though I'm 10 times more organized than the normal person because he's slightly more organized.
Yeah.
So quite annoying. But yeah, I was extremely organized. I was extremely polite. I was very polite with rejections. And I've been polite with rejections in every single way my entire life, which is the best way to be. Woman rejects you, be polite. Sales customer rejects you, be polite. Be polite always. Manners gets you, very, very far. And a lot of the customers who then maybe change their minds called me back because I was such a pleasant, at the time, young man. And they liked me, and I built some rapport with them. So no, when you get rejected in anything in life, say you go for a job interview and you get rejected, always behave like a gentleman and always behave amicably, because it will eventually, if you live long enough, backfire if you start treating rejection badly. So I've always been fine with rejection. Doesn't bother me.
At this point then, Andrew being 2 years older than you, where is he financially?
So at the time, broke is the answer. But short answer, broke. Long answer, he was actually making money kickboxing. I was kickboxing a bit, training a bit, fighting for 500-600 pounds a fight. He was actually making 3, 4, 5, 10 grand a fight. So he was making some. I call that broke, but
in the grand scheme of things,
looking back, it was broke. We still lived in a rented 2-bedroom apartment back then. But yeah, he was kickboxing. I was working the job. So if he didn't have any fights, because of my job, the rent was always paid. But then when he was winning fights, we could go on vacation and buy nicer things. So we've always, worked together and pooled our resources together. We've never thought of ourselves as separate entities.
Yeah, fair. So would you say you still have the sales? You would. 1 second, sorry, my voice cracked.
You need a cigar. It helps the
gonna
words flow smoother.
I'm gonna get to this. Watch.
Works for me.
I'm gonna get to this. Would you say you still have the sales skills in you?
100%.
Yeah.
If I went broke tomorrow, the problem is, because I'm famous, the Tate brand in and of itself is worth so much. I couldn't go broke. If I went broke, I could make the money back somehow.
Yeah.
But I could start selling cigars or ties or something. Yeah.
So if I told you right now, sell me this cigar, putting you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot to sell you this cigar.
Yep.
Okay, what's your experience with cigars? Do you like cigars?
Sometimes they can get to my throat a bit and then end up coughing or something like that.
Well, that's your problem. That's because you've been buying the lower quality cigars. What's your typical budget when you purchase each stick?
I think the most I've spent on a cigar is probably about £200.
See, well, that's your problem right there, because this cigar actually costs $350 per cigar, and the way that the tobacco is aged before they roll it is the key. The smoothness of the cigar comes not when you make it, not when you roll it, not when you put the label on it, but it's the process after picking the tobacco to drying it, flavoring it, spicing it, and aging it. And that's where the smoothness comes in, like a fine whiskey or a fine cognac. So what you need to do is smoke fewer cigars per week. Don't go for 3 or 4 at $100, $200 each. Just treat yourself every Friday night to one of these. This is truly exceptional. The coughing will stop. The smoothness will be there. You'll notice a greater enjoyment from your cigar experience than you've ever enjoyed before. It's $350. Do you want this?
I don't know, Tristan. $350 seems a bit out of my budget, man.
Well, you know what? If you can't afford it, that's perfectly fine, because I have customers who can. And things like this, they don't stay on the market for very long. So this is definitely going to go if I put it in the humidor at the cigar store. So if you don't want to buy it, it's no problem for me. And you could stick to what you have and keep coughing.
Gears have got to be right there. Light the cigar up. I just want to, while you lit your cigar, I just want to talk about that quickly as well, right? That cigar, that lighter you got right there.
Yes.
Talk to me about it, because we'll talk about it off camera, and I was like, nah, this is crazy.
This is an ST DuPont roulette complication lighter. Cost me $55,000. It's one of the jewels of my lighter collection.
I think I just made a full mess of that, didn't I?
Yeah, you did, and you cut it badly, but it's okay. It's all right.
We're trying.
You cut it. See, your inexperience is showing just
inexperience,
there.
Yeah, we're
no
inexperienced with this one, yeah.
So this has a roulette complication in it. It's got rubies. It's made by Tristan, the watch manufacturer. The mechanism inside. It's made out of white gold.
Yep.
And has a flame to light your cigars with. So now, ask me to sell you this lighter.
Go on.
Not worth it. Can't do it.
Really?
Nope. Be super rich and be super extravagant, and maybe you'll buy it because you're insane like me, but there's no way I could convince you to buy this lighter.
But why would you justify spending that much money on a lighter? I get that you smoke cigars and you like cigars.
Yeah.
But smoking that much money on it is insane.
Roll the top towards you.
Oh, towards me, yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Why would I buy that lighter? Because I like it. You know, when I was young and poor, I'm going to explain this. When I was young and poor, I used to see people buy very expensive things. And I would think of all the things I could buy instead. You have to keep it in your mouth while you light it. and there we go, until the whole end is glowing red. Smoother than your other cigars, right? There we go. You know what? This one's on the house. I'm not going to charge you $350. No problem.
Close it?
Yep, just close it. So lighters like this, I mean, I used to see rich people buy things like that. And if I was broke, if I was 19 and you were to put me in front of a person who bought a $55,000 lighter, I'd be like, oh, $55,000, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd upgrade my car, I'd buy a new bed, I'd rent a bigger apartment, I'd do all these things with 55 grand. That's a waste. What should I have done with the money instead? Me. I already run a massive charity. I already give loads away. I already feed kids all over the world. I already have everything I want. Why not have that lighter? It becomes a matter of why not. You know, why would you buy a Zippo for $50 as opposed to a 50-cent lighter for this plastic? It does the same thing. Why? It looks slightly cooler. Does it do anything different? No. It's harder to fill up. It's more hassle. You'd be more annoyed if you lost it. Well, that's that. However, to me, $55,000 is probably very similar to $50 to a lot of people out there who own the Zippos. So it's no different.
You know, as compared to a watch, yeah, would you say this is almost like a great conversation starter? If you're in a club or something like that with another entrepreneur on the same level of wealth, he asks for a lighter and he picks this up and he's like, yo.
It can be with the right people.